Farming is such a huge thing in Arizona, and I guess, people who live in the city don't really think about it. It doesn't concern us, which it does. But
the farmers are selling their land, Laura. Like, who are they selling it to?
I think it's mostly real estate developers.
Okay. And then they're developing more land, which brings more people.
And then less land for food created on.
Right.
Yeah. So multiple issues that creates, not only for the farmers, but will be a major issue for all of us. We have less and less land that we're using to create food.
Welcome back to the Around the District podcast, where we bring important conversations to our community. This space is all about learning, listening, and understanding the issues that impact our neighborhoods and our future. On today's episode, we have Laura Huber. She's the Democratic candidate for the Arizona State Senate in Legislative District 25. She's been a licensed professional counselor for 17 years. She grew up with 5 generations of farmers and ranchers and in wildlife refuges, and has an experience in wildlife living and services, whatever. But that's shaped her deep respect for land, community, and the responsibility that holds as well. Laura, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience as a therapist, how that shaped your decision to be in public service, and what made you decide to run for state senate in LD 25?
Yeah. So I have always wanted to have a meaningful career in which I felt like I could help people. I thought originally I was going to be a doctor. And then when I went to college and I was doing my biochemistry degree, I started taking some more psychology classes. And I was just like innately very fascinated in what makes people tick. Why do they do the things they do? What motivates them? And so it's always been an interest of mine. And so the mental health route just really seems like a natural fit for me. And I've really enjoyed just helping teens and adults, mostly with anxiety and trauma. I've worked in a lot of different agencies and different groups that involve a lot of policy decisions. And I think at this point, I just have the experience having probably worked with thousands of clients at this point, because I've worked in psychiatric hospitals and I've done homeless outreach and I worked in the jail, and I've had my own business, that I feel like I have so much expertise in what helps people in their lives and how to best benefit them. And I absolutely love helping people to make meaningful change in their lives. And I just want to do that at a larger policy level now, rather than just one-on-one in sessions. And so that's really what's led me to running for Senate, is feeling like I have a lot of information now about changes we can make in the jail system, changes we can make with healthcare, changes we can make in the education system that can really benefit people on a large scale.
Tell us a little bit about LD 25. Where exactly is the boundaries of that, and how far does that reach? What is in LD 25, and where are the boundaries of that?
Yes, so the district is very large. So it's west of the 303 from Surprise all the way down to the I-10, and then it kind of follows the 10 out all the way to Yuma. And so Yuma's good 2.5 hour drive from here. So it's a very large district that includes a lot of farmland. And so I don't know how many people know, but Yuma is like the winter lettuce capital of the world, they say. And so it produces about 90% of the lettuce that we use in winter months. So if you're eating any salad during winter months, it probably came from Yuma, even if you're in New York City. And so we really want to support our farmers here for sure.
Yeah, farming is really important. So you had another question about LD 25.
I did, because so you were running on the Democratic ticket, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So Surprise, from my experience, is like very conservative.
Especially going all the way down to Yuma and farmland as well.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Is that going to be an uphill battle for you? To get votes? Like, how's that going to work for you being a Democrat running in that district?
Yes. So I think that's a great question. Lots of things immediately come to mind. There are a lot of Democrats. So I think it's important to say that too, that even though it is a largely red district, there still are a lot of people that vote Democratically. So this district has about 40-something% Republicans, about 34% independents. So we have a really large group of independents, and then a little over 20% Democrats. So it is running as a Democrat, I definitely have to make sure that I'm winning over those independent votes and hopefully some Republicans as well that are not happy with this current administration or have felt like their needs really aren't being met by the current policymakers. So it will take a lot of support. It will take a lot of people um, understanding that the things that I want to help people with are useful to everyone. It's not a partisan issue. We talk about wanting quality schools or paying our teachers properly or access to affordable medical and mental health care, or making sure we have clean water. I think these are things that everybody can agree on. One of the things that I've really noticed is when I do my social media posts about my campaign, the people that say the harshest or the worst stuff, I go to their accounts and it's not even a person. It's like a bot.
It's a bot.
Yeah.
Bot. And I think that is really we have to do something about that because that is really what's driving such decisiveness in our communities. And that really has to stop because it's not that real people are saying these really off the wall things. It's bots that they're trying to create problems.
Yeah, and dividing the communities, right? Because they're just trying to be divisive. So tell me, when you talk to the people in LD 25, what is it that they tell you are their biggest concerns or their biggest issues right now? Like, what do they want you to solve for them?
hmm I think the number one thing for everybody right now is affordability.
Yes.
It's definitely making sure that we have access to affordable housing, that, I think the average age, for someone owning their first home is now in, like, the 40s or 50s. Like, it's ridiculous, and it's just become so unaffordable for people to even rent, and I feel really bad for the young people that have to try to fight with that and then have huge student loans. So I think I would love for us to move toward universal healthcare. I know that's something that has been a strongly bipartisan issue. Um, People feel very strongly one way or another, but I think one thing we can all agree on is that healthcare has to be more affordable, and I think that is a route to helping people in a huge way. And I think that there's definitely things we can all agree on. So having build insurance companies, working as a mental health counselor, I know there's definitely things we can do there. I think a lot of people are not aware that insurance companies can dictate diagnoses. They can try to, someone that does not have a medical degree can say, well, we don't think that this diagnosis should be given, or they can say, well, we don't think this note justifies this treatment, or we think you should try this treatment first, or we think this person should not be able to stay in the hospital this long. And those are things that insurance companies should not be allowed to dictate. And those are things that we can change at a policy level and make sure that people are getting better care and insurance companies are not involved in those types of things.
It's so funny you say that because I had I had surgery on my shoulder for a rotator cuff tear in October, and I got to go through all my physical therapy. But my friend, his wife, had the same surgery, and they only gave her so many treatments for physical therapy or so many times she could go, and then she's on her own. But from my own experience, I know that it's taken me 6 months pretty
Yeah.
much
Or
to
you
get
have to
myself
do
better.
so many
Yeah.
things before they even allow you to get an MRI
Yeah.
to see if you need surgery in the first place.
Exactly.
They
And for
dictate
somebody
all
to
of
be
that.
able to dictate that, that's crazy.
But somebody that's not an insurance company,
Yeah.
that's not a doctor, that doesn't, it's it's insane.
Yeah, the purpose is just saving the insurance company money instead of providing quality
The
treatment.
care. Yeah, the
So
care.
speaking of affordability, I wanted to ask, how is all of that affecting the people in your area, especially the farms and farmers? Because I know that we've seen across the U.S. that farmers have been really impacted by a lot of the things that have been going on. How have the people in your district been affected by all that and affordability issues?
Yeah, that's a great question. It leads into another really important aspect, an important issue in our district, which is water.
Mm-hmm.
And so it may not sound like it's connected, but it very much is because there's big disputes between like the city community and how water should be used and farmers. And I think people that do not have a farming background don't understand how much water it actually takes. If they're producing 90% of the lettuce for the United States and Canada and beyond, then that's going to require a lot of water. So I think sometimes people go, well, if we have a water issue, why don't we just pull back from what the farmers are using? And that's really not a realistic thing. It continues to happen. They continue to try to control how much water farmers can use, but then that means that they have to update their infrastructure. Farmers operate on a very low margin of profit, and there are so many things, like even the natural weather, that can affect how farmers are able to make any profit. And so when they're required to continually change their infrastructure, that can put farmers out of business. One of the things that happens is then they end up selling their land off because they can no longer afford to farm it. And then that reduces the amount of farmland that is even being used to create food. And so there's definitely so many affordability issues that farmers in particular struggle with. They struggle with all the things that anybody else would. And then in addition, these laws and regulations that continue to cause them to have to redo their entire water infrastructure, where they can put the water and where they can't. And certainly a certain amount of that is reasonable. Like, we want to be considerate and conscious of water use and if there's any unnecessary water use. But I think we really have to try to come to solutions that are more long lasting. So you probably know that the Colorado Water Agreement is due next year, and that there's still been no agreement to that. That's going to create a lot of problems because if they don't just come to an agreement, then they're going to start litigating, which is going to cost our state and all the other states involved, including Mexico, a different country, a lot of money. And so it's really, really important that we start thinking about what the long-term solutions are. I've consulted with several different water groups, and desalination is really what we're going to have to move toward. And obviously, that is very expensive. And so that's something that we really have to try to start shifting to. It also takes several years to create a desalination plant. You probably need a nuclear power plant to be able to provide the energy for the desalination plant. And then there's the issue of the byproduct, which is salt. So it seems like, well, we pulled it out of the water, we should be able to just dump it back in there. But that can kill off wildlife and create all kinds of habitat issues. And so that's going to be one of our biggest things going forward, is how can we make sure that we are creating desalination plants? We're figuring out how we're going to route that water from the ocean, and how we're going to provide the energy necessary. And you might go, one of the things I said was like, well, we live in a sunny state. Why can't we use wind? Why can't we use solar power? Well, because these desalination plants, they require 24/7 energy. And so those things like solar and wind, they're not available 24/7. They don't provide enough of the energy necessary. And so it's going to be a major transition in something that's really important and requires a lot of conversations with other states and even another country.
Yeah. And especially, I mean, farmers, you have to think about too the expense of the equipment. Like, I know personally some farmers that have owned land and farmed this land for over 100 years that have had to sell off their land. One, because of the water issues. Two, because of the price of equipment. Three, because of finding workers. So they've just in the last few years had to sell off land that they've owned for hundreds of years in Arizona. So I think that that's really going to impact the price of things as well. So, if farming is such a huge thing in Arizona, and I guess, people who live in the city don't really think about it, and we don't think about the water, especially, because it doesn't concern us, which it does.
If
But
the farmers are selling their land, Laura, like, who are they selling it to? Are they selling them to data centers, which then requires even more water? Or are they selling them to other?
I think it's mostly real estate developers.
Okay. And then they're developing more land, which brings more people, which
Right.
means there's more need, right?
And then less land for food
less-
created on.
Right.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
multiple issues that creates, not only for the farmers, but will be a major issue for all of us if we have less and less land that we're using to create food.
And so the area that you service or you live in, it's more of a rural area then, right? More less city, more rural.
The
Okay.
largest portion of it is just open land where I think most people don't live. Yeah. So we do have parts of Surprise and Buckeye. So there's definitely city area and then a huge portion of Yuma, but the largest portion of it is rural. Yes.
Okay.
so how do you think your background in how you grew up in your counseling, how do you think that will influence your approach to how you will run your campaign and how you will how you will problem solve, how you will find, how you'll work with if you are elected.
Yeah. Well, you were just talking about how our district is mostly rural, but it has a lot of city areas. And I think that is what my life has been. I grew up in a very rural area. I was always helping my grandparents on their farm in the summer. And I always like to joke, my dad had like a garden that was like the size of a crop that he wanted us to take care of every summer. I've helped ranch cattle. And so I know personally and firsthand how hard and how important that work is and the struggles of farmers and ranchers. And I also feel like I have a deep respect for preservation of public lands, which is so essential. Our current federal government officials seem to be really not taking the importance of that seriously. There's been a lot of oil drilling allowed and what used to be protected lands. And that's going to be catastrophic in the long run for the animals and how that affects the quality of the land and our clean air and clean water and all of those things. So I think I have a really good balance. I've lived in the city for 20 years, so I also appreciate all the things that come with city living as well. And so I think I have a really good balance in terms of knowing firsthand what it's like and what the struggles are for both rural communities and city communities. So I think that's a really important piece. And as far as like I mentioned before, the mental health counseling, I think I've learned so many things in my career in terms of how to best help people. You can be teaching someone like a healthy coping skill, but if you don't relate it to exactly what it is that they're struggling with, it might just feel like, "Oh, I know that already," or "That's not helpful to me," or "That doesn't apply." And so I think all the years of doing counseling helped me to be able to explain really complex issues in a way that's more useful for people. And so I think that's a really important piece. I think just being a good listener. I think you also learn as a therapist too that you never want to assume anything. And that's such an essential piece in a leader is like you should know all the time that there could be like one more piece of information that you could learn that would like totally change your perspective. So I think it's really important to not like get into a state of righteousness or think that you have like the ultimate correct way of doing things. I think it's so important to be able to hear as many people as possible and also to know that there's a big difference between like just having sympathy or empathy for something and having lived it. And so I think it's so important for leaders to raise the voices of people that are directly affected by these issues and to make sure that you always just have an open listening ear and you're always ready to grow and integrate more information. And really, I see my role as a figurehead. Like my role is to raise the voices of the people around me and in my community and represent what they feel their needs are. It's not for, um, just being on one track about whatever a representative thinks is important.
Yeah. Well, we're here with Laura Huber. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to bring you back for another episode. Talk more a little bit about your personal life and some more of your plans for if you are elected. So please follow, share, like us at Around the District's podcast, and we'll give you some links to how you can help her with her campaign and get her elected as well. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode.